Welcome back to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price. You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price.
Either way, I don't give a damn what you think you are entitled to.
Ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've been waiting for. So listen responsibly.
It's the best of the best. It's the one and only DJ Ice, Louisville's coldest DJ.
Good evening. Welcome to Conscious. I forget the people like me so much in the audience, and I always try to talk over them, which is not a good thing. Good evening. I'm Carl Price. This is Conscious Fever here on Ice Entertainment Television and Conscious Fever Radio. Do me a favor, if you're listening to me out there, if you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up, give me a like or something on Facebook, because that's what I'm watching here, or you can do it on YouTube. Just let me know that we're all in sync, number one. And number two, I have a guest tonight. The guest tonight is Paul Mullins, and we're going to talk about Mitch McConnell, Senator Mitch McConnell. I'm going to try to be as respectful as I can, because the question tonight is, should he stay or should he go? Or is he just too old? Oh, thank you, DJ Ice. See that you have. DJ Ice, so you, sounds good. Thank you. What my producer is doing here, but that's okay too. But it looks like, hello from Facebook, hear you loud and clear. Coffee. Thank you, Coffee. Kofi. Thank you so much. So listen, this is Conscious Fever. I'm Carl Price. So this show is brought to you through Ice Entertainment Television and Conscious Fever Radio. And we're going to talk about Mitch McConnell, and we need you to weigh in. We have a new feature here on the show, and that feature is that you can actually call in. Give us a call. If we get too many calls, we're going to limit the discussion with you that's calling in to about 30 seconds. But I've got Paul Mullins here with me tonight. But before we bring Paul in, that's what we're going to talk about. Too old, he's got to go. Come on and call in and let us know that that is the case. When is old too old for public office? So I am going to, before we bring Paul in, well, we're going to need a second just to get Paul set up. Literally, we're going to be gone for probably about 15 seconds. Don't go away. I'm Conscious Fever here on Ice Entertainment Television, Conscious Fever Radio. We'll be right back.
Now check it out.
I have wept and I have fallen, don't you worry about me, 'cause I stood up, yes I have grown, the pain has set me free, and like a broken record in my head.
Welcome back to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price. You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price.
Okay, good. All right, welcome back to Conscious Fever here on Ice Entertainment Television, Conscious Fever Radio. When is old too old for public office? That's our topic tonight, and we want you to weigh in. Again, 502-614-0441 is a call-in number. My guest tonight is attorney Paul Mullins. Mr. Mullins, how are you doing tonight?
All right, Carl. Thanks for having me on, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So before we bring the picture in, we're gonna bring somebody else in. We're gonna just put me and Paul side by side, if that's okay, with the screen that's side by side. Not that one. You had a side by side, not that one. Yeah, this is what we have to do. Anyway, you can leave us there. Anyway, let me get to where I need to be seen. Okay, so Paul, this is our man. When is old too old for public office? Now, before we get to talking about that, we want to show y'all and a very, very interesting clip. So we're gonna go to Mitch one. Some of you all may not remember this, but a few months ago, I think it was Paul, Mitch McConnell
Had a fall.
he had a fall many months ago here in leaving a restaurant, I think, or a hotel in Washington D.C. Then, but before that, he also had another fall at his place here in Louisville. So, you see my fade in here. You're probably gonna have to fade me over here. Nope, right over here. Just go back to my screen. Go back to my screen. Sometimes we got to do file maintenance on. Go up one more time. Yeah. You see that around my shoulder? Can you get rid of that with the fade over there? But in any case, so he had a fall. And subsequently there too, at some point he suffered a concussion. And when he suffered a concussion, part of the problem was that, he thought he was okay and all of that. But he's 81 years old, number one. And number two, we all know all the football stories about those who suffer concussions and different things like that, right? So we don't know what's going on with Mitch McConnell. The doctor continues to clear him, and I'll tell you, and Paul, we can talk about this, but I think the doctor's clearing him because in Kentucky, if Mitch goes down, our Democratic governor has to appoint and name a senator, which is likely going to be a Democratic senator. So here's what we're going to do here. So we're going to take a dive a little bit, and I'm going to show you all these videos. We're going to start with Mitch 1. This happened many months ago, and this is what happened. If you've never seen the video, this is when he froze, kind of like Jay Giles' band Freeze Frame. I want y'all to check this out.
Path to finishing the NDA this week has been good bipartisan cooperation and a string of
Okay, Mitch? Anything else you want to say, or should we just go back to your office? Do you want to say anything else to the press? Let's go back to you.
Go ahead, John.
I'll take it. Let's go back to you.
Go ahead, John.
So this is we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the IRA, and of course,
Bring me back at least. Okay, so that is the first video, okay? Then there was another video, Paul. There was another video just a couple of days ago. So we're going to show you that video as well.
okay.
Senator, you're up for election in 3 short years. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, I had a hard time hearing you.
That's okay. What are your thoughts
What are my thoughts about what?
on running for re-election in 2026?
That's
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026?
yes.
All right, I'm sorry, you all. We're going to need a minute. Senator. Benny.
Okay.
Somebody else have a question, please?
You are listening to Conscious Fever.
Okay. All right. So there you have it. So that's what happened. Let me try to get in this as much as I can, but that's what happened. And so our question tonight is a very simple question. When is too old to run for public office or to even be in public office? We know Strom Thurmond, Paul, was an individual who served until he was in his 90s. I'm not sure if he was 90 or well over 90, but he served. So talk to us about this. Is it, I mean, should we allow individuals to serve in public office? Let me just say this, that it used to be taboo about 30 or 40 years ago that if you were in your 20s serving in the Senate or in your 30s, I think the minimum age is like 30 something, right? For the Senate.
Yeah.
But the House of Representatives, there's a 25-year-old in the House of Representatives now. So
that might be the bare minimum.
So it may be the bare minimum.
I don't have a constitution in front of me, but I do remember the presidential age is 35.
Right, and I think it's the same for senators. If I'm wrong, y'all can correct me out there.
It's definitely lower.
But in any case, it used to be taboo many, many years ago that if you were young and you were serving, and if you were, hold on, guys. It used to be taboo that if you were young and you were serving in the Senate, very, very young senator, just like John Kennedy was very young when he ran for president. That was a little taboo. They preferred the 60 and 70 something people. But now, with all of the jokes about Joe Biden, and I don't believe them all. I'll just tell you, I don't believe them all. You need to get rid of that.
What are the jokes?
Huh?
What are the jokes?
What are the jokes?
You said the jokes about Joe Biden.
Yeah, many, many jokes. But anyway, Paul, I want you to weigh in on this topic.
All right.
First of all, let's start with the first question. Should he stay or should he go?
Well, so that's two different issues. Number one, I'm going to say he should go just because of some of the things he's done as a senator I personally disagree with. But to your point, the question of age. So here we go. I've talked to you at many, many lunches, Carl. I have always felt like that there should be age limits to somebody being in office. And, 80 is certainly in that range of me thinking it's too old. I've been saying that for a long time, and I've always said to you, Carl, I've said, anybody who's 80, most of them need help from other people. And, we're looking at a president who's 80. They always show him doing what, Carl? Riding around on bicycles, doing energetic things to show that he's not old. But again, anybody who's 80, very few of them get around a lot. Now, we got a friend who's 80. His initials are KB. You know who I'm talking about. Even though he's 80, I certainly wouldn't say he was incapable of making decisions and on behalf of other people as a representative of government. But I guess when I get 80, Carl, I'll have a different opinion. But right now, I think that you have limits on age to get in office. Why shouldn't we consider limits on age to stay in office? You know what I'm saying?
No, I understand.
So that's where we are. You're asking me, is Joe Biden too old? It's not really fair. It's kind of anti-democratic to say that someone's too old to run for office because the will of the public should decide. So if we're going to say Mitch is too old, we're going to say, what, Biden's too old? That means Trump's too old? I mean, should we put a limit on it? And I think we should consider it because, again, there's an age limit to holding office. You got to be 35 to be president, I believe. Isn't that the number, 35 or 36? So certainly they should entertain the idea, or at least kick it around. Should there be an age limit, to stay in office? The problem is, what the problem is, Carl? The problem is everybody who would vote on that, a lot of them, the older people, had a lot of power to say, no, we don't think so. I mean, Nancy Pelosi was over 80, right? Did anybody think she needed to be booted out of office just because of her age? Not her politics, but just because of her age. It's pretty. It's pretty hard to say something like that without sounding like an age discrimination or anything like that. But man, I'm telling you, all the people we know in our regular life who are over 80, a lot of them need to be cared for. A lot of them. So to me, it's a problem of trying to balance between telling somebody they can't run because they're literally too old versus the right for people to still vote and determine whether or not they still have the qualities to be in office. And at this point, I hope that covers the question without me sounding like somebody who's just discriminating against people for age, because myself, I'm over 50. When I was 30, I thought 80 was like a dinosaur, but as I close in on age 80, it ain't that old. So, my opinions change. And I suppose if I'm in the shoes of an 80-year-old, I'm going to have a different opinion.
Okay. So what do you mean by that? You're going to have a different opinion.
I'm 50 something. When I'm 80 something, I'm probably gonna feel like I'm 60 something, right? Because I'm 50 and I don't feel 50. I feel younger than that. Hopefully, I look younger than that. So when I'm 80, I'm not gonna feel 80. I mean, they're gonna have to, force me to do things, and I don't know what the mindset of an 80-year-old is. I know that a younger person looks at me. If he's 20, he's probably thinking I'm old and don't know what I'm doing. But I feel perfectly fine and fit and able to do anything that any younger person might want to do. And I think when you get 80, you have the same feeling, and people are telling you you're too old to do stuff, and that's the first thing people that age do is they rebel.
I mean, but 80.
I mean, you can be 50 and in worse shape than an 80-year-old. You can be 40 and worse shape than an 80-year-old.
Right, but 80 is old. Right? I mean, I
know.
Don't, listen. I'm a health nut. So with me being a health nut, I think that, and I've said this to you before, Paul. I've seen people in the Himalayas to live to be in the 120s. I read about one man who was having babies in his 90s. And I know you don't believe that. I think I told you that before. You don't believe that. But that's because you're so engaged in this American culture, and we think old is 60 and 70 and all of that, when in some countries it's not that. But in that situation, or that country that I was just talking about, which was the Himalayas, once McDonald's and Burger King came over, then people started dying, into their 70s and 80s. So what I'm saying to you is that I believe that age is just a number. But in this case, and particularly with Mitch McConnell.
When you're talking about it, you're comparing his age versus his health. Like I said, you can be 70 and in worse shape than an 80 person mentally and physically. So I think people would make that argument that his pure age alone is not a factor. But to me, so let's look at it.
So you believe this is about health more than age?
I'm trying to take health out of it, but I'm actually saying the opposite. I'm trying to take health out of it because if you put a health into it, again, someone 70 can be healthier than an 80-year-old. So that's not really the factor, unless you're going to have some kind of fitness test for every time a senator or congressman takes office. That's a different topic for discussion. But when we're talking about if you're just going to say, okay, 85 is the limit, what basis do we use to say 85 is the limit? Do we say at that point you're so out of touch with the rest of the country because you're at that age? But, how do we know that? But to me, it just seems like every 85-year-old person I've met has needed help. And I remember when my ex-wife's grandmother turned to 80 and she was driving and she was doing well. And then it just seemed like in a day, by the time she was 85, everybody had to care for her. And then she died at like 88. So I'm just saying, when people get to that age, it's like they could literally fall off at any time. And I'm not saying that in a gruesome or macabre way, but it's just a literal fact. I mean, you look at the news and you look at old movie stars and you're seeing people are dying at 82, 81, and it's like you haven't heard from them in years, and it's just like, how do you first of all tell somebody you're too old to run, and then you balance that with, even though you're not, even though we're not going to say you're too old to run, we know you're too old to really
do the people's work.
Do the job, yes.
Do the people's work. I mean, you're there because do not go to that screen, because I think it's going to cut our sound off. You don't know that. You may know that. I don't know. But anyway, but really, so here's the problem. Let's just talk about Mitch McConnell. So, and I understand that you're making a distinction between being old and being healthy and the cross between the two. So the question
I don't think
becomes,
Mitch McConnell's healthy.
Can you put it side by side, please? Huh?
I don't think Mitch McConnell's healthy.
No, I don't think he's healthy either. But but the point I'm making is that, are we talking? Because you and I have had this conversation. Do we say that there should be an age limit?
Well, like I said, I mean, if we put out a blanket number like age 85, you got to stop. I don't see a problem with even having that discussion, because again, the founders in the Constitution put an age limit before you could be in office. Why couldn't you be 21 and be a somebody who knows how to govern? But the Constitution says we don't care how old you are. You got to be 35 to be president. So why can't we have age limits at the other end that says, okay, 85, we thank you for your service, but you got to go.
502-614-04.
Welcome back to
502-614-0441.
We good?
When you go to that call-in screen, it cuts the sound off. That's why I don't want you to do it.
Right.
We are breaking in the producer here. It takes some time here at Conscious Fever because we require a lot.
It's all good in the hood.
It's all good in the hood, so we won't talk too bad about him. But in any case,
we won't talk about
So is it fair though? And I'm just going to pose a question. If y'all want to call in 502-614-0441, we'll take your call right here on the air and let everybody hear what it is you're talking about. What about the 85-year-old who still has pep in his step or her step?
It's possible, but here's what my issue is with the Mitch McConnell, since we're kind of focusing in on him. We have seen him freeze twice in public, right?
Twice. Freeze frame, just like Jay Giles band.
How many times has he froze when he wasn't in public? We'll never know. And so you've got people around him. The two people with him who are handling him, are they really making the decisions? Because think about this, Carl. I'm a lawyer. I see people bring 80-year-olds in my office all the time and try to get them to sign a will. Now I got to judge whether this person is being handled or whether this person is making decisions. And it looks like Mitch McConnell's being handled.
According to, it looks like Blackman Boone, it looks like Akeisha. She says it's called greed and white privilege. He is sick. What's your thoughts on that, Paul?
I mean, I don't know about the greed and white privilege, but what I'm saying, she's saying the same thing too. He's being handled. He may not be making decisions. He's being handled. He's got two people there. Did you hear the question? Well, they asked you, and they're literally telling him everything, and he's giving. If you listen to his answers in that same interview, he's just giving canned answers. So my question becomes, if he's having these two lapses before our eyes, how many lapses is he having when we're not on camera? And decisions are being made. Now, people elected Mitch McConnell. Did they elect the lady who was up there handling him? Did they elect the guy? And that's the problem that I have, is he's being handled. So his health is a concern. And if his health is a concern due to his age, that's fine. But as a blanket number, 85, initially, Carl, we had this discussion at lunch, and I was like, yeah, a cutoff age. But I can see why people have pushback on that.
Okay, so we're going to bring in this caller. Let's see if we can bring in this caller to join us on this. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. What's your first name, caller? Can you hear?
This is Kofi Abusa speaking.
Oh, Kofi. Yeah. Okay. So I've seen your comments. So here's the question. What age is too old for public office?
Number one, I love the topic tonight, and I'm glad we're talking about Mitch in this case. John Lewis died at 80 years old. And, at his age, he still had a little bit of pep in his step that I can say before seeing that man pass away gracefully. So I feel like it's one of those situations where, I want to bring up the matter at hand when it comes to even reaching the decision that we talked about, like Paul mentioned. The Constitution gives us a number where you got to enter public office, but we don't have a number yet that says you can no longer serve, but we thank you for your time. As I look at this, I'm questioning the same question that you posed earlier. How do we even get the folks to pass a law on this? You know what I mean? It's the situation that you have all these old folks within their 70s or 80s serving in our Senate, House. But these are the same folks that would have to vote for that term limit, and I don't think it's possible.
You don't think it's possible? So you don't think it would ever happen?
I don't think it's possible.
So basically what he's saying, Paul, is that, I actually totally lost everything that you said. Let me just hook somebody else back up here on there. We got some little issues here. Can you hear me through there now?
Yes.
Still can hear him? Don't worry about it. Okay. So say what you said again. Hopefully Paul can hear you because Paul doesn't have headphones on.
So I go back to the question that you posed, and I mentioned John Lewis died at 80 years old, and he was a man that I believe still had pep in his step. When you say that, he had pep in his step, but he died gracefully. Had he not, I don't think anybody would have said he needs to go. But when it comes to the situation of even bringing that age limit and that number, we still got to pose the question, who's voting to get that done? Because I feel like the only people that we have to vote to get that done are at this age or reaching this age that we're talking about. So I feel like it cannot be done in this moment. I don't think it's something that's forever going to be a thing within our Constitution. Clearly, there's a mass majority around the nation who believe there is an age that's too old, and we don't know what that exact number is, but there has to be an age that's too old because we start getting concerns of health issues. We shouldn't have to wait for the day that you fall down
So
to
I
say you
suggested
got to
85.
go.
Right. So
Yeah.
Paul suggested 85, Kofi.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on 85? Is 85, I mean, are we still talking too old, or are we just reserving 85 for
still
those with
talking
the pep in their step?
We're still talking too old. And I feel like you even have to bring up maybe a group of medical doctors in situations where you might want to pass a law like this that brings an age limit and a number to it. Because at 85, I can guarantee you my grandfather had health issues. So should the rest of my community wait for my grandfather to fall down and break his leg or something to happen before they get him out of office?
Right.
I don't believe so.
Right. So at this point, just your opinion, do you think, Kofi, that Mitch McConnell is even effective for the constituents here in Kentucky?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I'll tell you this, Carl, because I kept up with your past election. I love everything that you stood for. And I'm a Republican. I'm a registered Republican.
Shame on you.
But party don't matter to me.
No, it doesn't. I'll go ahead, Kofi.
Yes. People matter to me. But number one, this man is not effective. I have seen every video, and the first time I actually laughed at the videos when I got to hear some laughing background sounds inside the clip that you played. And the first few times that I watched that video, and I watched the very first one that you watched multiple times, watched that second one a couple of days multiple times, and I kept going, who's trying to keep him here? Why are they keeping him here? But then you mentioned, the governor can appoint whoever, maybe for Senate. If that's the case, I believe, whether that's the case or not, the Republicans are keeping him there. They want him there. They want him to get a job done. But that job's over.
Right. And you understand the politics now that you understand that the governor here in Kentucky is a Democrat. He's running for re-election. He's running against, but anyway, he's running for re-election, and the election is in November. So really, the way I see it, what's really going on is that Mitch, in the condition he is in, he is just trying to hold on, hoping that the Republican candidate here in Kentucky gets elected governor, and then he'll leave office. And I guarantee you, if this Republican is elected as Kentucky's next governor, the very first next day, Mitch is going to retire. And the reason he's going to retire, because then that Republican governor can appoint another Republican. So that's the politics of it.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
But I also believe there, as you mentioned that, I also believe that Mitch is not speaking for himself. I don't believe he is.
He's not.
No, handlers.
He definitely is not.
Doctors clear him.
Yeah. And that's sad, because the people did not elect those people speaking for Mitch.
No.
They elect. I will say we elected, because I've been here in Kentucky, but I absolutely did not vote for Mitch McConnell anytime. And I've been voting since I was 18. I didn't, and Mitch has been in there for a while, and I did not vote for Mitch when he ran back at that time. But anyway, Kofi, thanks for calling in here on Conscious Fever.
Thank you.
Continue to join us, okay?
Thank you, absolutely.
Okay, all right.
I got a comment.
So, Paul, go ahead with your comment.
So it begs the question, the governor from Pennsylvania, the senator from Pennsylvania, was Fetterman? Remember, he had a stroke, right? Yeah. So it's the same issue. He had a stroke. They had to, even though he got elected, he had to take a bunch of physical exams to prove that he didn't have to, but he did take a bunch of physical exams to prove that he was still physically able to hold the office. I mean, why wouldn't you have some type of, And it wouldn't have mattered. Even if he had been a vegetable, he might have still got elected. But we've got to put some standards into place so that it's not just pure politics driving people getting elected. You know, if Mitch McConnell, is alive by 2027, and there's another person who he thinks is a Democrat who might win the next election cycle, you don't think Mitch McConnell at 85 years old would run again? Because I do. I think he would keep running to hold that spot for the Republican Party, and it's not a spot for him to govern. It's a spot for the Republican Party, and that they all vote. And since everybody votes in blocks and everybody votes as zombies and sheep, it doesn't matter what you really think. You're just voting together as a party. So Mitch McConnell would run again. So that being the case, I don't think that, even though Fetterman was a Democrat, I'm not sure he should have been seated in office. And we're talking about he has a health issue.
No, you're talking Fetterman in Pennsylvania.
John Fetterman from Pennsylvania.
Right.
He's a senator, right?
He is a senator, and he had some additional health. I think he had a stroke before he got elected. Then he had some additional health issues. Had to take a leave once he got elected.
So even though his age is different, you could say he's having the same issues as Mitch, cognitive dysfunction. And that should be the test actually rather than age. I'm backtracking. I still think it's age, but I think if you put a test as cognitive dysfunction, I think your 85-year-olds, your 80-year-olds, they're going to be less likely to possibly pass the test.
Right. 502-614-0441 if you want to join us in the conversation tonight. But so, Paul, let me ask the question this way, just in terms of something you just said. So, what do we do with 80-year-olds in our society?
What
do we do with 80-year-olds in our society
in my
today?
experience, they're either in a nursing home or somebody's taking care of them. I don't know any 80-year-olds who are still out driving and
You don't know any, but there are some.
There are some, but we've had this discussion. While we say there are some, it's a small percentage of the population. The majority of people over 78, to be honest, are being taken care of by family. You don't see a lot. There are 78-year-olds, 80-year-olds. There are people who are still out and about, and I'm offending a lot of people, probably people I know. I'm probably offending somebody I went to a party with last week. I'm 80, what are you talking about? But, I'm just saying, for the most part, people
we did go to a party last week with a 70-year-old birthday party. Yeah.
And so for the most part, when you get to people who are in their 80s, and I'm not saying 80 or 81, I'm saying in their 80s, a lot of them are being cared for by somebody. And that doesn't mean across the board, but
here's what I'm going to do. Yeah, here's what I'm going to do. I want to show that clip again. Let me know, producer, when we're ready to show that Mitch 2 clip again. Just let me just nod your head when when you're ready. Because I want to show that clip again because I see a comment here. It says the doctor said that Mitch is good. We're going to talk about that in just a second.
Okay.
Senator, you're up for election in 3 short years. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, I had a hard time hearing you.
That's okay.
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
That's
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026? I'm sorry, you all. We're going to need a minute. Senator. Benny.
Yep. Okay.
So seriously, Carl, aside from the laughter of that, when I look at that video, I see the same older grandparent, great-grandparent generally, that you have in your family that's sitting in the back corner, that everybody just kind of moves around, and they're always like, Granny, you okay? You need something to eat? That's what I see.
It gets worse, Paul. The rest of that video, which we did not show, is when he was walking out. And when Mitch was walking out, you could just see that it was almost like he was so frail. But, the look on his face, I'm going to inject some comedy here. I think it might be comedy. His family may not like it, but the face he was making was kind of like that old Bill Cosby face.
Yeah.
You know, but again, is there a case to be made? Well, first of all, let me get back to this. His doctor said he's good.
I mean, I'm not a doctor, so if the doctor said he's good, now what I also read was that this could be a lingering condition from his falls. Okay, so he had a fall. Ever since he's had his falls, he's been having these dizzy spells. And I think last time he froze, he explained it as he's having dizzy spells where he just gets disoriented. And to me, that is what people describe in old age where they have like dementia.
He's making excuses.
Yeah.
He's making excuses just to stay. And that's what Strom Thurmond did.
I know.
That's what Strom Thurmond did. Because if I'm not mistaken, is Tim Scott in Strom Thurmond's seat or is Lindsey Graham? I thought Lindsey Graham was already in Congress when Strom Thurmond was there. But in any case, the doctor says he's good. What are the politics behind that, Paul?
You said it already.
What?
It's to hold an office space for the Republican Party. It's nothing more than that.
And that is so sad because it illustrates that politicians are really not there for the people, that they're there for the politics or there for something else. I'm going to read some of these comments that don't come up. Strom
Thurmond was replaced by a guy named Thomas Wolford.
Okay, Thomas Wolford. Okay, so this says now John Miles says money, money, money. One of your Newt brothers.
Uh-huh.
He also says no, early signs of dementia. And Bob Bornstein says, get that turtle a heat rock to keep him from freezing. Bob Bornstein. Bob Bornstein, Paul?
Yes,
he's an attorney. Bob, let me just read you
what
what Bob said. Let me read you what Bob said. Get that turtle a heat rock to keep him from freezing.
Keeping him alive. So I just looked at Strom Thurmond. He was 101 years old.
He was 101 years old when he died.
Yeah.
But he didn't die in the Senate. He left the Senate at like 99, right?
2003.
Okay. So here's the thing. If I can ask this question, should we consider age in the next election? Because we very well may have a 76, 77-year-old running against an 81-year-old.
I mean, to me, if you're talking about a country...
but to be fair, Paul, we can talk about Joe Biden too.
Look, if the Democrats were courageous, they would run somebody younger, like maybe the governor of California, anybody else, because this is the scenario that I'm afraid of. If Biden's 84 and the average lifespan of the average American is 80, he's on borrowed time. He could die in the middle of the election. Literally.
Who?
Biden. Look, y'all, right? Look, 80 is that number where people just start. Let's look at all the celebrities who died at 80. James Caan died at 81 this year. He probably thought he'd never die. He's a celebrity. He got money.
I'm one of the things I'm not.
Is it James Caan from?
I'm one of the things I'm not. First of all, Bob, you okay? You do not have to apologize. But listen. But here's the thing. Is if age is not tied to health, why should it ever be an issue? I mean, there are some people, we see them every day, Paul, and they look better.
I know.
They're in better. I mean, I've seen some people that are well into their 70s, and when they told me their age, I was just like, oh, I never would have guessed that. And I know we say black don't crack and different things like that. And I'm not talking about black folks. I'm talking about people who are keeping themselves up. As we often say with the United Negro College Fund, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. But I am concerned that as a constituent in Kentucky and of Kentucky, that Mitch McConnell is no longer effective. And he's doing a huge disservice to his constituents here in Kentucky because he probably doesn't. But there are people that voted for him. Well, he first of all, he should care about me because I'm one of his constituents, whether I supported him by a vote or not. But in any case, 502-614-0441 if you want to join in, call in and join the conversation, 502-614-0441.
Bob,
When is
we
old
love to hear
too
from you,
old
Bob.
for public office? Yeah, Bob, call us here, 502-614-0441, and give us your comments. Don't be shy. Don't be ashamed.
So I mean, we're still talking about an age limit. And I do think that if they're going to make the push or the argument that there should be an age limit, you know, you can go on the constitutional grounds. They, for a reason, put in there that you need to be 35. Okay, they felt like, and there was no rational basis to it. They just feel like 35.
Minimum age.
Right, minimum age. You need to be 35. Why can't there be a maximum age? Like literally, we could elect somebody who's 100 years old simply because he's holding a spot for our party, and that's good for America. I mean, yeah, we can say America can vote in whoever they want, but we can't vote in a 29-year-old genius.
Are we seeing signs of dementia?
Probably, but
or is he having many strokes? And I know we're not doctors out there, people, but I'm just saying, are we seeing signs of dementia?
We don't know what we're seeing other than I see him as any grandmother I might have in my family who, once they get too old, everybody has to do stuff for them. And if you get to that point where you can't really care for yourself and you need handlers, why should you be entrusted with decision making for 4 million Kentuckians?
Do we have a right to call for his resignation? I think we have a right to call for his resignation right now, but do we truly have a right to call for his resignation if we find that he's not feeding himself, that he's got a caretaker that's feeding him?
We'll never figure that out. Honestly, we'll never figure that out.
I mean, he's got a house in the Highlands or somewhere, right?
His home
No, you're gonna follow him into his home, but you can play peeping Tom just for a few seconds.
Well, I mean,
and if Miss Chow, is that her name? Her last name?
She's 70.
Is she 70? Okay, but if she's feeding him,
well, but that's his wife.
Well, I understand, Paul. That's not the point. I know your wife, but you're not gonna get me in trouble with genders. What I'm gonna say here is this. It's very simple. That if I were to walk in a restaurant and Mitch McConnell's there, and someone is feeding him,
like he got a bib on,
and he has a bib on,
okay,
that's a problem.
That's a problem.
502-614-0441 if you want to join the conversation.
The way they play politics, that would not disbar him from office. I mean, someone could easily say the same thing about John Fetterman. He can't even. He can't even speak. He can't even. They have to get somebody to speak for him. They could easily say that about John Fetterman, but it's fair game. Yeah, if you're a Democrat, you want John Fetterman, but honestly, if he were a Republican, you'd be arguing the same thing they were arguing. How can he hold office if he has a stroke? It's a health condition, and health is a concern. What do we do about it is the question. What do we do about it? There's nothing in place. There's no mechanism in place. The people could elect a mentally disabled person because there's nothing in that says they can't hold office. We just don't do it. So if someone was once a genius and they become mentally disabled, there's still no mechanism, no test, no quality, nothing to say they can't. Just like there's no test that says people can't vote because they're stupid.
He could have a caregiver, but we'll never know. However, what happens in public is a tell-all. Yeah, it's just like Paul said earlier, John. What we're seeing in public may be just the tip of the iceberg of what's really going on.
He may be freezing 4 or 5 times a day.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got another caller. Let's take this caller. Caller, give us your first name.
Dre.
Hey, Dre, how are you, sir? I owe you a call, Dre, but that's a discussion for another day. Dre, are you there?
Did you kick him off?
No, I didn't kick him off.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, okay. No, I was just the minimum age limit. We should have not necessarily a maximum age limit, but just like the president,
Dre, I think you have a bad connection, my friend, because you keep cutting off and down. Are you there? Okay, we're gonna let Dre call us back. But it sounds like he was about to say something that was really worth discussion. Dre, give us a call back so we can. But we had a bad connection with you, and that.
Or text it in.
I'm not gonna read the text. You gonna read the text?
No.
I'm gonna send the text over there to Paul so he can read it.
No.
He could have a caregiver, but we'll never know. However, what happens in public is a tell-all. Mm-hmm. To your point, Paul, what we see in public is something that is telling us that potentially Can you go to the comment screen and then let's pull this over. Go to the comment screen and let's put this comment by DJ
Well,
Ice
Carter,
up.
to follow up on your point, we see him freeze twice in public. He could be doing that 5 or 6 times a day. You know what I'm saying, Carl?
Okay.
Or more. He could be doing that many times throughout the day,
Make it bigger.
and we don't know about it. And I think the public has a right to know about it if he's doing that. You follow me?
Yeah. I wanted to give this comment. I know it's up there. We're just waiting.
Well, just read it.
Hold on. I can't read it if we're gonna work with this producer here, y'all. We're gonna work with him. Okay. So here we go. This is
it's Dre calling back.
This says okay. Okay, so we have a call on, but this says DJ Ice says Dre freezing up like Mitch. Okay, take us back to my screen. Talk to the two of us, please. Okay, so we've got another caller coming in, 502-614-0441. Caller, tell us your name.
This is Alvin. How you doing, Carl?
Hey, Alvin, how are you?
I've been great, man. I appreciate you asking me. I'm enjoying your show as always, and
appreciate it.
I appreciated you a couple of years ago allowing me and Dr. Keel Pruitt to have a discussion about the Trump presidency.
Yeah, I got to have another discussion, Alvin, because I'm telling you, Dr. Keel Pruitt is on a roll. She's on a roll, man. We had her. Didn't we have a conversation with her last week?
Yes.
Yeah, you got to go back and watch last week's show. She was on a roll. But anyway, our question tonight, what age is too old for public office, Alvin?
Well, I think that you should expire at 70. I think
Cuts out Reagan. Ronald Reagan's out.
Wait a minute, Alvin. I know. Just gonna put it out there. I know some 70-year-old men that is taking those blue pills, and they are like a spring chicken. Why would we not allow them to serve in office and get the treatment Bill Clinton got?
70.
Well, I think
that, didn't you?
I think old ideas stand in the way of new ideas.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that these guys, after a certain period of time of being a politician, that they done anyway. I mean, that's why they're deemed career politicians, that they want to take and embrace the same old antiquated ideals where you have other young politicians that probably have some other ideas that can, move certain entities forward, either on either side of the aisle, whether they're Republicans or Democrats. That you have some bright stars out there, and unfortunately, unfortunately, a lot of people feel a certain way about being in public office, Carl, because it's just been drenched with the swamp, if you will. That politics has been made bad in America in every facet of the United States.
Yeah, but hold on something, Alvin. Hold on, Alvin,
Yes,
because
sir.
you said something that was very interesting. You said career politicians, but if he's a career politician, we all have careers, and we stop serving in those careers at a certain age. Most of us. Now, Paul and I are lawyers, so we may stick around until we're 80 if we desire to. I mean, I plan to stop in my 60s, but here's the point. The point is that if most people have to stop their career, retire, if you will, or at least give them that strong option, and most people take it at 65 or 67 or something like that, why wouldn't we do that for politicians?
Well, I think that when you look at politicians, that they battle every day, every so often in a session of the Senate or Congress, making decisions about bills and making decisions about money. And if you get outvoted, that can go on forever. So you really don't move forward anything in those entities because you can be outvoted. And we know how that goes. So after a while, the ideals don't get pushed forward anyway. And I think that is what is frustrating to the American people, that you have these old fellas with white hair generally that are making decisions based on, in some cases, money. And it's just
in all cases, money.
in all cases money, Carl, and it becomes it becomes stagnated. And I think that your lawyer friend, probably would agree with that. That you guys are lawyers, and y'all see how these things take place more so than the average citizen, because y'all probably follow it a little more closer. But things don't move and it crawls in Washington.
Yeah,
And
yeah, but I would tell you, we've seen some lawyers that we've helped in court because they were just simply too old to stick around and do it. But listen, Alvin, thank you so much for calling in. We've got another call. We're gonna take that call. And by the way,
thank you.
Your friend Dr. Kia Pruitt is on. She reminded us that she's listening to the show, so we got to get you guys back on. But have a good day, Alvin. All right, so 502-614-0441 is the number. What do you think about his comments, Paul?
I agree with some of it. I don't agree with all of it. The part I disagree with is 70. I think 70, you mean you're going to cut out a president who've already been president. Ronald Reagan, Eisenhower might have been in his 60s, but you're going to cut out people who have been president, and no one's going to say, even though I didn't like Reagan, I would not have voted for Reagan if I was voter eligible. People generally consider him one of the better presidents because of so many. He won all but one state. So you can't, reject the will of the people. If the will of the people back then, he took office at 68, 69 or 70, considered him the best candidate. So while I disagree with that, what I'm going to agree with him on is I think what he's really talking about is term limits. Okay, so these career politicians, whatever your age is, if you have a...
No, he didn't say term limits.
No, but I'm saying that would be the solution to his issue of being a career politician.
Right.
For instance, if you can only be a president twice, why is it that you can be a senator for 100 years?
Right, but here's the
I
problem.
understand why they did that, but I don't think they anticipated that people would serve for 30, 40, 50 years.
Right, but here's the problem, Paul. Here's the problem. The problem is, this is the way Washington works, right? The longer you're there, the more seniority you have.
Right.
In terms of discretionary money, which is in the millions.
The more power you amass.
The more power you amass. Mitch McConnell's been there so long that he has elevated himself.
Even though he's
even during the
corpse.
Obama years, right? Even though I don't know about a corpse. That's a bad thing to say. But even though he has advanced himself up to the Republican leadership in Congress, so there's some significance that is tied to being there a very long time, and that's why you see these 80s and 90-year-old men, as Alvin said, generally white men that are in Congress for an extended period of time.
But Alvin's correct. That's why there's a swamp, because you're allowing people to stay there over and over and amass all this power. When you go to serve on most boards, if you've been on someone's board, the boards of corporations, the boards of your nonprofits, all these things have term limits. So you can't sink your power into a board of trustees and be there forever and totally dominate and control, because people know that when you allow people to do that, you don't grow ideologically. To Alvin's point, you don't come up with things to, when you're 80 years old and you're trying to decide what 20-year-olds want to do or what 30-year-olds want to do, people feel like that's unfair. And then you didn't get in that office because the 20 or 30-year-olds voted on you and everybody wanted you in. You got in that office because you've amassed so much power that they can't get you out.
Yeah, 502-614-0441. 502-614-0441 is the number if you want to call in. You and I, Paul, earlier this week at some point, we talked about Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump is running for re-election.
Do we ever not talk about
it? Is, you said what?
Do we ever not talk about Donald Trump?
Well, I mean, he gives us something to talk about all the time. But he's 76. He's running for re-election.
I thought he was older than that.
I don't think he's older than that. But in any case, whatever age he is, he's close to 80. Mm-hmm. And I guess the point I'm making here is that I when we had that discussion, one of the things that I said was that, Donald Trump gets around, he could do another 4 years in a heartbeat.
I don't see it like it. I see it like you go to a family reunion and you got an Uncle Ted and an Uncle Joe. Uncle Ted is 75. Uncle Joe is 78, and they're both talking about who's too old to do what. And the person like me who's 30, 40, or 50 is looking at Uncle Ted and Uncle Joe and saying, both of y'all are too old to be doing anything. And I think that's how I feel about the candidates. Like, I'm never going to vote. I'm just putting it out there, Carl. I'm never going to vote for Trump, right? You and I know this. But if Joe Biden looked like Mitch McConnell, I'm going to still vote for Joe Biden. And that's part of the problem, is that the Democratic Party needs to get some courage and say, okay, Joe, you're a little too old. And I have these visions that either Joe's going to die in office, or the day after he's sworn in, he's going to be like, well, I'm going to step down and let Kamala Harris take it. Whatever. I just have this vision, because if he's put in office at 84, he's got to go to 88 to finish out a presidency. And I'm just like, I can't envision that. People that I know who are 85, 86 have met. People you've met. Think of who you've met at this age, 85, 86, 84 even. They are not people that you see as a leader, even in their own families. Now, maybe in these rare occasions, we're talking about somebody like that. But generally, when you think about the 80-year-old in anybody's family, they're not the leaders of the family. And I think that we need to hone in on that and get to the point of, should we have age limits on running for not just president, but any office?
Any office. Well, Dr. Kia Pruitt, by the way, says, my president is 77. Alvin says, in athletics, a 40-year-old quarterback is too old.
Except the one exception. Tom Brady.
Except Tom Brady.
Right.
But let's talk about Tom Brady and in the same context that we're talking about Mitch McConnell in, right? Tom Brady shows us that age is nothing but a number, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, let's just keep it real.
I don't know what his secret is, but yeah.
Well, but Tom Brady was playing as good as any young quarterback. Maybe not his last year and a half, but he came back, he switched teams, and then won the Super Bowl. So in Tom Brady's situation, age is nothing but a number. But I think the bigger problem is I'm just concerned that literally we have no representation in the Senate, because, Rand Paul is he's just like a little poodle that. Now, don't get me started on Rand Paul. But the point is that
get the vote out, man.
Yeah, you have to get the vote out. But the point is that I think it's a disservice, and I think somebody, look, we've got a whole we're in the 8th month, we're in the 9th month now, so we have a whole three solid months left, four solid months left, right? September, October, November, December, and how many more times is he going to freeze up? And how many more times are we going to say it's okay with it? We're talking about the medical concerns. We don't need the news media to tell us that there's a medical concern with Mitch McConnell.
Right. Anytime
Mitch
somebody's
McConnell. I mean, we can see it, and he freezes up not by choice. I mean, it almost looks like he's having a stroke. I'm not a doctor, but it almost looks like he's having a stroke. And I'm just concerned that people who are have the gall to know that they shouldn't be doing the work.
I don't know that he knows, man.
Well, that's another issue about his mental capacity and why he should not be there. So, in any case, it's not age, it's health condition. Yeah, right. I mean, and that's what we said earlier. But Dre, I wish you could call it back in and we can hear your comment. But the point here is that I agree with you. Is it health or is it really age? And I agree that it's health. So if you want to start putting limits on saying 85, what about the 85-year-old who's performing better than the 60-year-old?
But that's okay. That's your limit. 85. You can be 85. You can be extremely healthy. You can be perfect. But if you work for a corporation, corporations they age people out, forced retirements. I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's not saying you can't do it, you won't do it. They're just saying the risk is too great to have somebody at your age. You could suddenly anything can happen, and it may not happen, and we don't want it to happen, but we just put a limit on it.
LeBron James.
What about him? He's not 85.
No, he's not 85, but LeBron James is almost 40 now?
So the difference is this. The difference is, to me, you can't put an age on somebody's physical limitations, because that's something you can objectively tell that they can or can't do. And while we might say the same about, well, cognitively we should be able to tell whether an 85-year-old can or can't do it, we are literally looking at a guy who's 81, and we know he can't do it, but there's just people who won't actually, there's people handling him who won't actually let you know what's really going on. And to me, That is no different than the grandmother at the house who's 81, 82, 88 years old, who everybody has to handle. That's what happens when you get 80. People have to handle you. When we were more primitive people didn't live to 80. You know why? Because you didn't have people handling you.
Well, I don't think that's the only reason.
I'm just saying.
But okay.
But I'm saying, in ancient times, you either survived or you didn't.
No, absolutely, you survived, and you didn't have people living into their 80s or 90s. You had animals doing that, but not people. But what are TIAs? Valerie said that
TIAs.
I think he's having TIAs. What are TIAs? Is that some type of mental condition that?
We're not doctors.
No, we're not doctors. Valerie, we're not doctors.
Yeah, she's gonna tell us what that is.
One person said 65 to 70 should be the age. 70 to 75 should be the age.
Oh my God, I thought I was bad. They really chopping them up, ain't
Yeah,
they?
Valerie says that the man is sick. He needs to sit down before he
You
dies in office.
gotta remind people that we've already had presidents at that age and nobody ever complained about their age. Now, we did complain about Reagan's age, didn't we? While he was in office, because he couldn't remember shit in his last 2 years, remember?
Yeah, I mean, is
He
it
couldn't
age?
remember anything.
Is it age discrimination? Are we really talking age discrimination here, Paul?
Well, I mean, to me, like I said, the only way I could make this argument about
it's a specific question. Are we talking age discrimination?
Only if the Constitution has age discrimination, because in the Constitution they put the minimum age to hold a representative.
But they did not put a maximum age.
But I think they didn't put a maximum age because I just don't believe that they thought people would. Okay, maybe they meant to not put that maximum age.
Well, let's just keep it real. If they had put a maximum age, it would have been probably 60s, because back then people were dying much earlier. They were not living to 80, 90s, and 100. Very few people were, but not the masses that we have living to that age now.
I wonder why they put a minimum age though, because that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Maturity. You know, there's a lot of literature out there that says that boys don't mature. Their brain doesn't come into full maturity until they're 26 years old.
But wouldn't there be a lot of literature out there that says at 85 your brain deteriorates and you're not?
It could be, but I get back to Dre's comment and I say, are we talking health or are we talking condition? Because are we health or are we talking age? Because if we're talking health, then that's a case by case basis. That's an individual by individual basis, right? That's not necessarily, everybody. I don't know.
So what it would take to actually change and put in an age limit, if you're going to do this, it would take a constitutional amendment.
Right.
Okay. So anybody who wants to drive that bus would have to get a ratification by what percentage of states? Is it
3/4?
3/4, 75% of the states. So that's what it would take to get age limits.
Yeah. Well, in any case, we are at our limit now. Paul, so I want to say thank you for joining me tonight. It's a very interesting discussion, and I hope that we get an opportunity to share this video. Maybe we'll boost this show so everybody would understand that, people are really thinking about this. I mean, it's really debilitating to actually see, hit that both screen there, put one more up, right there. It's really sad every time I see the videos, and I know that we played a video today and there was laughter by it and different things like that. But the reality is, Valerie says many strokes. College coaches are leaving before they turn 70. Not Rick Pitino.
Right.
Rick Pitino just took a new Division I job, and he's 72, 73, or something like that.
It's not 82.
So I just want to give this disclaimer that the video you saw earlier, there was laughter in it. But you attribute that to the audience here because the audience laughed. We didn't laugh. But it is sometimes sad to see, even whether you vote for Mitch McConnell, whether you're a Republican, whether you support him, etc. It's a sad sight to see, but it does bring into focus all of these questions that we have to ask. And those questions are, at least my question is, are the people in Kentucky, in Mitch McConnell's district, which I'm in, are we getting effective representation when he can't get through a damn press conference? Paul, you're freezing.
No, I'm not. I was
Paul froze over there. I thought we were having a little Mitch McConnell, Jay Giles freeze frame type of set. I mean, the song. I wish we could play that song, right? Freeze frame. Let's just all do a Mitch McConnell, Paul.
No, I just
in
I thought
3
about
seconds.
the sad part.
No, yeah, because it
it.
is sad. It is
Yeah.
sad. But let's just do a 3-second Mitch McConnell moment. Ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
What was the question?
Question was on term limits. Are you
Uh,
gonna remember?
Term limits. Okay.
No, we are not. Dr. R is lying. Yeah, that's disturbing. Yeah. Anyway, whatever they were mini strokes or, I'm sorry, John. I know, John, you're laughing at that, but we just,
He said he was having dizzy spells.
he was that's BS. It's BS. Dr. Pruitt said we need Jesus. Listen, we know listen. I don't think he was being lightheaded. And one doctor said lightheaded from dehydration.
Yeah.
And dehydration will cause you to be lightheaded. We all know that. That's just common knowledge. You don't have to be a doctor to know that.
It's just funny that he froze at the question about is he too old to run for
Right. I mean, it just hit right at the right time.
Think
right?
about it.
Like, do you think you're going to run for re-election?
Oh.
Well, do I need to answer that?
Yeah.
That's probably what he was thinking. He said, okay, yeah, I would take it. But what was really sad in the video, which we did not show, was when they were walking him out. He just looked so feeble, so feeble. Alvin said Rick is 70. But everybody, the suit and tie, let me just tell y'all this. Halloween is right at a little bit over 60 days away. Guess what my costume is going to be?
Mitch McConnell? Never mind. Sit right there.
So when you come to the door and I'm there and you ask me if I want some candy, I'm just going to be... Then you ask me a second time. And then somebody who is trick-or-treating with me is going to come and say, Carl, are you ready to go? We're going to take you back
Carl,
to your office.
She said trick-or-treat, Carl. She said trick-or-treat.
And I'm going to say...
Do you want to give her some candy?
Who said trick-or-treat?
You want to give her some candy, Carl?
Give who some candy?
That's what your handler going to say. Carl, do you want to give her some candy?
And say, who are you? You just dressed normal.
Do you want to give her some candy?
I'm dressed like Mitch McConnell.
Come on, Carl. Let's go on back in the house.
Okay, y'all listen.
Give him a few minutes. He'll be back out with the candy kids.
Listen, this has been Conscious Fever. I am Carl Price, the host here. This show is brought to you by Ice Entertainment Television. Thank you, DJ Ice. And Conscious Fever Radio.
We're going to get in trouble.
The young man over there is Paul Mullins. Where's he at? Right here. The man here is Paul Mullins. Paul, thanks for joining us tonight. What age is too old for public office? We don't know, but we all know what our Halloween costume is going to be this year. All you need is a shirt and tie and a jacket and some glasses, a frown, and a freeze. I'm Carl Price. This is the Conscious Fever here on Ice Entertainment Television. Paul, thank you for coming as always. Again, our disclaimer is we didn't really mean anything by the video with the laughter, but don't charge it to us. Charge it to the live audience that's here. Audience, I want to hear from the audience. Not the laughter, but the applause. Yeah, you see, they're laughing again. Thank you. I really appreciate y'all coming here to the studio tonight. But I'm Carl Price. This has been Conscious Fever here on Ice Entertainment Television and Conscious Fever Radio. I am ready to get out of here. All right. Again, this has been Conscious Fever here on Ice Entertainment Television, Conscious Fever Radio. I do appreciate y'all joining me. We should be back next week. Enjoy the holiday weekend and be very, very careful out there. Paul, again, thanks for joining me. And again,
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price.
We're going to get some phone calls from the government.
Do you think we're in trouble? Anyway, we'll see you next week. The producer is supposed to take us out to the YouTube promotion. Good night.
I don't want them, no, get them all off me. Say that for L, she a cause, you see. 4 cars deep, we'll come through on a lane night. Chicken spot, wings and fries, we call that a day night. Lights on, so out, I don't have no stage right. Knew that I was built for this forever, ever.
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price.
We ride dance, 10 times 10, all my friends. It's for real.
Trump, that's what confused me. It was Mitch. You said go to the clip with Trump in the middle. I'm like, what are you doing?
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price on 97thebeatfm.com.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh yes it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh yes it is. Then I go to my brother. And I say, brother, help me please. But he whined.